Welcome back to the Better by Next Week podcast, where this week me and Ollie tackle recovery, which essentially is beers and nachos. And we wanted to call the episode Beers and Nachos because as trail runners, we tend to be a little bit more relaxed when it comes to nutrition and recovery and all those kinds of things. But today's episode, essentially, we're going to try and cover what recovery looks like post-run or a training session, post a big event, and also recovery in terms of injury. And then throw in on top of all that, just little quirks and little things that we've picked up and insights that what we found recovery in general over those three things can cover. And what we've done, we've asked Gaby Villa, who is an awesome nutritionist. She works with Phil Gore and some of the
She worked with you at the time as
well? I've worked with her as well. She's worked with some of the best endurance athletes in Australia, and she's actually jumped on board and she's given us some really good nutritional tips for, real recovery from training, recovery from big events, and recovery from injury.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned beers and nachos because that's like the perfect or one of the most common meals right after an event, which we'll get into later on. Like I know a lot of people like beer is basically carbs, and I know Merrin at Backyard Ultra was drinking a bit of beer as well. That was a bit interesting.
Yeah, that was his recovery in between loops, wasn't it?
That's really interesting.
And then who else do we know that mentions nachos after things?
Well, we know Courtney DeWalter is all about nachos, and I think it is a very relaxed kind of
vibe almost.
Vibe in the ultra running community. Like we need energy, and I feel like it's not frowned upon to be having these processed foods or quick energy, quick snacky foods just for energy,
Yeah, and I think post-recovery, it's important to do those kinds of things. That it's because we're going to discuss a little bit today, because recovery isn't just nutritional or physical, it's also mental. And I think that the nutritional can really ties into that mental side of things, because if you're super strict and you don't have, obviously you can't drink, but like if you're post race, and I often see people at a 8-10 or whatever, having a beer, post-race beer or something like that.
In saying that, I did have a zero alcohol beer right after Marooned Dam. I hated it. I'm like,
you had a sip.
Here you go, Dad.
You had a sip, you didn't like it, that's right. But, I think being super relaxed through recovery is a really important part of the recovery process, because if you're really strict, you can tend to be a little bit too stressed when it comes to those things.
Well, stress is super... Like you're already putting stress in your body throughout training, and we talked about it on our run before, how your body only knows stress. It doesn't know where you're running, whether you're running up a hill, down a hill. All it knows is stress. And there's a lot of things like sleep that can help that, and food especially that helps that. And when we went on our run, I thought about it. I'm like, recovery isn't what you do after the run. It's also before. So whether that be a warm up or during, whether you hydrate or not, and we'll get into that a little bit later on, what I found.
Yeah, but you're 100%. There's a lot of things that you can do before you actually do the activity that will aid you in recovery afterwards.
Yeah, well, it's preventative. It's not on the spot stuff.
That's right. So, and each one of those topics, we're going to kind of cover what you can do beforehand, during, and after, and what it all looks like. So, I guess let's get into recovery from a training run. And pretty cool, because we just did a training run about half an hour to an hour ago, and it was like a 14K easy run,
easy trot, but not for me. I was struggling a little bit today.
Oh no, it was pretty. Like, I mean, it was pretty
hot.
good.
It was hot.
It was pretty warm training run. But what did you do straight after that run?
So straight after, I went straight into stretching. I feel like that's a non-negotiable, especially for both of us. Your muscles are so warm, and I think that's a really good opportunity to start loosening little spots off that you find that are a little bit sore throughout that run. For me today, I found that my hips were just completely blown out from a previous run I did yesterday. And I found that as soon as I was off running, I went straight to the little pier thing that we have and leg up, stretching out that hip. that's straight after always. What about you? Would you?
When I started the run, I felt, because I'm a little bit tight anyway, because I'm in taper now, and that's what normally happens. These big load weeks, and then you're
starting to recover a little bit from those big loads.
That's right. But what ends up happening, I'm a little bit older as well, so I end up tightening up. So during that run, I actually felt a bit tight for the first 5Ks of it. And I was thinking, oh, geez, I'm struggling a little bit here. But then as I eased into it, warmed up, I felt a lot better. But as soon as I finished, I thought this is the perfect opportunity to stretch out those muscles that during that run were really tightening up. So just like you, as soon as I finished, I stretched up. But then I went inside, and first thing I did, I had a protein shake. So for me, that's almost like so instinctive to do.
Yeah.
And I've always got it ready.
You just got that part of your routine.
Yeah, that's right. So it's that protein shake, and either be like a banana or a muesli bar or anything like that to help with uptake.
With protein, it actually says on the label, and it's become a very popular thing now. It's consume half an hour maximum after your run.
Yep.
And combining that with carbs, because that promotes recovery like a lot, because protein, what does it do? Help with repairing those micro damage that you've done to your muscles, and the carbs help top up your glycogen stores, which is basically what you use for energy. And combining those two straight after a run is God's gift.
Yeah, that's right.
There's nothing more that you can do there.
Yeah. So Gaby Villa's insight on post-training was refuel, repair, and rehydrate. So essentially what that looks like. So refuel, carbs within an hour. Repair was protein within 2 hours. And rehydrate, that's the rehydration part of it, was more sipping often throughout the day, and to make sure that you're nice and hydrated. And it's funny, because how did you feel on during and after today's run?
It was actually funny, because last night I came in and the whole day I didn't hydrate. Yeah, I had a Coke here and there. When we went out for family with lunch, and I came back, and it was a tough session. It was like 200-meter repeats up a hill. And after that session, I was so sleepy. I was so tired. Legs were heavy. And I feel like that has some relation to my hydration throughout the day. And again, I didn't listen to myself, what I said last night, because I came back in, I'm like, Dad, I need to hydrate before my runs. But I didn't. And I went out today super hot, mouth was really dehydrated. Granted, I had 1 glass before my run, but it's just not enough.
Yeah, like Gabby said, it's sip often throughout the day, so that doesn't happen. What I also find with something like hydration and those kinds of things, and making sure that you're fueling before your training sessions, is that when you're in a really good routine. So for me, when I'm working, that's the best routine, because I wake up in the morning. It's the same time of day. I have the exact same breakfast. I have a glass of water first thing in the morning. Then I'll have a glass of water at lunchtime. Then I'll have a glass of water before my run. I take water with me with Tailwind on my run. And then I hydrate with my protein shake straight afterwards. And it's that routine. So my midweek, it's awesome. But yesterday, it was a different kind of routine. We woke up in the morning. We went out and seen some family. So you're probably not conscious of, drinking as much. And then that's where you can fall into that trap. So often you got to, maybe a little hack to fix that is like that challenge that I gave you, that Better by Next Week challenge. Have that bottle and or like maybe not 3 liters, but two
there was
liters.
A little joke from Trails Towers, and they put up a story.
Oh yeah, it was funny.
Like, drink 3 liters of water a day.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, their little joke on our challenge. But yeah, but even if you have that 2 liter bottle, and then just have it somewhere around the house or whatever it is, and then you walk past it, and it's a visual cue to say to yourself, oh, I've got to have a sip of that. I've got to have a sip of that. I'm going to make sure I'm drinking that water.
Well, one thing that Gaby Villa, it seemed like from your insight there, was replace. And what you're doing, you're replacing. I feel like a lot of this revolves around replacing stuff that you've lost. Running is a very tiring sport, and you're often, a lot of the time, you're losing things. So you're losing hydration or sweat, and that's when your liquid comes out. And then you're using electrolytes with that. So, and also energy. You're losing carbs and glycogen stores. So it's all about topping those things back up. Yep. And with hydration, like we talked about then, comes with we use Tailwind,
Yep.
which is electrolytes, and we'll have that. And there's actually a rapid hydration,
Yeah.
which is paired with electrolytes that you need throughout your day, and you just put that in a bit of glass of water, and you win-win.
So it's essentially it's trying to replenish everything as soon as possible, so that you're ready to go again for that next training session
And
the next day.
It's super important as well if you're, and we often talk about going all in, and if you're in such a big training block, you want to do everything in your power to be able to hit these next sessions as best as possible. And hydration, fueling, all comes into that, and all play a big role in your recovery.
Yeah, and I mean, some things, if a few things slip here and there, it's probably not the end of the world.
No.
But what I've found during my biggest training blocks is that I've managed to find what almost the perfect formula is, because if your goal is to run a really big training week, then there are certain steps that you need to take and have plans in place to be able to train and go back to back to back. So it may be making sure that you hydrate properly, making sure that you've got a balanced diet, making sure that all these things are perfect, like massage and all those things come into play. But also being, after your training runs, being aware of where your little niggles are. An example for us was, like you mentioned, with your hips being tight, me saying to myself, I'm tightening up a little bit here because I'm backing off the training, so I need to have a bit more of a stretch after my run. But only when your muscles are kind of warmed up.
It's good to also, like, a method to use is like just to scan over your body and where you're sore, like you said with me and my hips. And today we went out and I had to tell Dad a couple of times. I'm like, whoa, mate, just chill out, all right?
Why is that?
Because it was supposed to be my easy runs. A lot of the elites train hard, but they also rest hard.
Yep.
And that involves your easy days, and a part of that is active recovery, because you're trying to get the blood flow going. You're trying to flush out all fatigue that has accumulated from those hard sessions you've had prior. And if I'm running hard on my easy run, you're just accumulating more fatigue, and then you're not going to be able to hit your sessions. It's just going to be a build up of all these byproducts, and you're going to feel very heavy the next session. So this is why I was always conscious. I'm like, Dad.
Yeah, you're right.
down.
Yeah, 100% right. And I kind of sometimes get sucked into running too fast. But I think that that's where like coaching can come into it sometimes too. I think we often go out and look at a session and say to ourselves, oh, I'm going to run at this. And then you're out there and then you're feeling good. And then you're chasing that awesome buzz that you get from running hard. But you've got to be patient sometimes. I think with some training sessions, if you back them off a bit, then the ones that you need to do that are harder are going to be easier. And that's also part of recovery, because you hit that session really hard, and then your recovery run is what's going to help you hit another training session. And then you go from one and you string them together really nicely without... it was explained to me like this. It's like a rubber band. You're like a rubber band, essentially. So you pull the rubber band, and then your recovery is releasing that rubber band. And then you pull a little bit harder because you go a lot harder, and then you release a little bit. But if you're going hard every time and you're pulling on it, and then you're pulling on it, and then you're not replenishing, hydrating, and you keep pulling on that rubber band, in the end, after a month or two, you snap that rubber band. And then you go back to it and say, oh, what do I do now? And then you go into the recovery from injury. And you don't want to get to that point. So pushing too fast too soon can break the rubber band, and you find yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in. And recovering from an injury is a hell of a lot harder than recovering from training.
You've had your fair share of injuries, and I remember you went down a little bit of a spiral a year or so ago, where on your easy runs, you wouldn't necessarily do them so easy. And I would get more angry and looking at your training than what you would be. And I remember going out for one specific bike ride with you because I was in recovery mode. Funny, right? Talking about recovery. And I remember riding alongside with you. And I'm just talking and talking and talking. And yeah, I completely understand. You're in your own head. You're probably fighting some demons. And you don't want to hear this bloody blabbing mouth for the whole time. And yeah, so you told me to be quiet a little bit. And I was. But towards the end of the run, I looked at you and you seemed to be really huffing and puffing. And you had told me, it's like, oh, I'm just going for an easy run today. And then we got back and I actually brought it to your attention where I'm like, you shouldn't be feeling like this on your easy runs. I'm looking at your face. Your face should not be red.
Yeah.
You should not be breathing that hard. And it was probably a clear indicator that you're not taking your easy days as easy what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And do you think that might have led down to your plantar fasciitis injury, like by pushing too much, by stretching that rubber band too much?
100%. I 100% agree. And the signs of that injury were there a lot sooner than what you think. I remember going for some runs and starting to feel it, and then when I looked back after the injury flared up quite bad, I remembered the day that I was running to parkrun where it was starting to happen, and I was looking at myself and I should really just back off here, and I probably could have avoided a year and a half of battling an injury if I had have just done that. So I mean, recovery from training it's a huge thing and really important to focus on so that you don't have to then go into recovering from an injury.
So we've established why recovery is really important. Now, some people might be like, oh, I'm a little bit confused whether or not I'm recovering as well as possible. Like, what might that look like in a training? For me, it's definitely fatigue and heavy legs. Heavy legs are a great indicator of like, maybe I should back it off a little bit, especially as well as that when you're in sessions and you look back and it's like, oh, I was able to hit these paces, but except now your heart rate is so much higher, so much more elevated.
There's more stress on the body.
More stress on the body. So that's another really big indicator of probably you're not recovering enough.
Yep.
Do you have any other ones?
Well, yes, 100%. Those indicators are huge. But for me, like I kind of want to go into the one big thing that you need to focus on when it comes to recovery from training, and that's sleep. I think sleep is a huge factor when it comes to recovery. I find that like it's been really funny. I've had some really big training weeks, and I'm on the knife's edge. I know that I'm on the knife's edge, trying to get as fit as I can for this event that I've got coming up without breaking myself. So essentially, what I'm doing is pushing everything to that edge, and I know I'm on that edge because I'll go to sleep at night and I'll wake up, say 3 hours later, and I'm like, I got to go to the toilet. And I get up out of bed and I'm like, oh, geez, I'm sore. Geez, oh, my feet are a bit sore. And I'm like the Tin Man, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit older. This is what happens
so that's 2 times you said that you're a little bit older.
I am a little bit older
anymore.
Yeah, I know that. I know, but yeah. So I'm getting up and I'm a little bit like the Tin Man going to the bathroom, and I think that's because I'm older. But then I go back to bed. I wake up 3 hours later and I spring up out of bed, and I'm thinking, okay, what's happening here? And I think that's what's happening is that obviously 3 hours is not enough. Maybe 5 hours is probably not enough. But by the time I get to 7 or 8 hours, my body has recovered. So I'm almost getting that cycle perfect where I wake up in the morning, I'm rejuvenated from my sleep, recovered, and then I follow, a reasonably strict diet where I've got plenty of carbs, plenty of protein, plenty of fats. I make sure that I fuel right during my runs. I then recover after it's stretching and do all those things. And then the cycle then continues again. And within 24 hours, I've recovered again. And I'm not getting sorer. I'm not getting slower. So to me, that I've found that balance. So I think my advice to people out there, and it doesn't matter. It could be a 5K, it could be a 10K training run. Some people, it might even take them, 48 hours to recover. Take that time. You understand what your body's feeling, and then say to yourself, and be accountable, obviously, not lazy. Say to yourself, I feel like I could, crush that session again. So you kind of string them all together like that.
There's no one bit of equipment, no one food that aids and helps you recover faster than what sleep does.
Yes.
And when you're sleeping, what happens is because you're releasing all these stress hormones, the sleep levels and balances out those hormones and everything. And it also releases the human growth hormone, which helps you recover faster. And there's things that we can do to help us get better sleep, because what we want when we're sleeping is deep sleep. That's when we're recovering the most. And when I look at my watch, I'm not getting too much deep sleep, but I think that's a little bit of a.
Oh,
Don't just be careful looking at your watch. It's funny because sometimes I'll wake up and feel like I've had a horrible sleep, and then my watch is like, 99. I'm like, yeah, I had a really good sleep. But no, that's not the case. But there are things that we can do to help us get better sleep, right? And help us get more into that deep sleep zone when you're sleeping to recover faster. So that's like, I've been trialing something. I've been having a glass of water right before bed each night. And I feel like I wake up a lot better. It's also getting the hours. We always talk about getting sleep hours right before 12. So not going to bed after 12, because more often than not, you'll wake up and you feel awful and feel like you're super depleted to get out for your run. Like for me, 2 nights in a row, I've been staying up editing little reels for the podcast, and I've been going to bed at 1:30 this morning. Woke up. I just like, I can't get out there for that run. But I still did, but it was a sufferfest. Yep. So sleep is so crucial for recovery, and you need to optimize it, because we often spend so much money on all these other bits of equipment, whether that be your compression pants and massage gun, and we're not focusing on the one thing that gets it done.
Yep.
And it's sleep.
Yeah, 100%. And, there's other things that you can do, like sleep in a completely dark room, put your phone somewhere else in another room.
I'm so happy you mentioned that.
I know that Phil, when he was on when we spoke to him, when he came over for the weekend, he spoke about that, about having the phone in another room. Yeah. I think for me, I've actually started taking my watch off, because I love my stats. I love looking at all the stats and what they say, and it's telling me that I've had a good sleep. And so, just like you, I'd be waking up in the morning, and first thing I'd be checking my HRV, my body battery, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing that? Like how do I feel? I feel good. Yeah. I'll go with that.
You're not going to let your watch tell you otherwise.
No, I'm not going to let my and we're going to do an episode on watch stats and stuff like that at some point to really, highlight the stats that are worth looking at and the stats that aren't that important, because the contact that your watch makes with your skin and heart rate, I don't reckon it's all that great. But
well, there's another. We'll go into it a little bit more, but I just wanted to mention how heart rate as well can be a really good indicator of stress, which stress is basically how well you're recovering.
Yep.
And disrupted sleep as well. If you're having disrupted sleep, it is a very big sign that you're not recovering too well. But like a heart rate strap on your arm or even along your chest is a lot better than the heart rate data that's getting it off your wrist. I don't think it's very accurate.
100%. All right. So how about we go into recovery from big events and what that looks like? Because it's similar to recovering from training, but it's a lot more focused on nutrition and like rest and active recovery. So
this is very fresh in my mind right after GV, and obviously you're not going to be training too much because you can't. You've just done this really big event. For me, it was running 240 Ks at GV, and there are, and it gets down, like you get it on a mental low. I had a really bad run of like the post race blues, and there are things that you need to focus on instead of running, because all I wanted to do was get back into running, but it's not good for recovery. So other things that you should instead spend your time on is, like you said, the food, the sleep. Those are the 2 main big things that I would suggest for anyone to do and focus on after a race. Because for me at GV, I had 36 hours of very disruptive sleep, on off, 20 minutes here, 10 minutes here, 5 minutes here. And I need to get all my hormones to balance off again. I need my muscles to recover properly, and being able to get a high amount of sleep. Like, I feel like I sleep like a baby after an event, right? Because your body's so tired. And for me and a lot of young people, your body needs to grow. And I remember this is one of the issues, because I quit GV because of sleep deprivation, and you explained it super well. And I was like, why can't I just be, I compare myself to these adults, and I'm like, why can't I just be like them? How can they stay up throughout the night? I'm getting enough sleep. I was getting so much sleep, but it's because, why do you think a baby sleeps so much?
Because it's growing.
Well, because that stage of the lifespan is characterized by rapid growth, right? So it's always sleeping. Same goes for like adolescents, teenagers. You're growing like a lot in puberty. Yeah. I don't know why that took me so long to find the word, but in puberty, you're growing so much, so you need that sleep. So it's probably not ideal for me to be doing these multi-day events. But why can adults go for longer? It's because they're not growing.
No,
So-
yeah. We're recovering from events in terms of our muscle recovery, whereas you're trying to recover not only the muscles, but on top of that, if you're going through a growth spurt
Yeah.
in adolescence, like it's just.
But that's not to say that adults need sleep. Like, I'm not saying that. You definitely need sleep right after an event,
Oh,
because
100%.
again, it's that you need the deep sleep to be able to recover. And
Well,
that's
essentially what's happening when you're sleeping is your body is fully relaxed.
I love
there's
that.
there's no tension at all. So then everything's recovering, and the longer you sleep, the more sleep you get, the more relaxed you are, the better it is. We on our Ponderings podcast, we played a video by Dr. Jack Daniels, and he spoke about losing fitness and the mental side of recovering from an event. Often people think, "Oh, I'm going to lose all my fitness. I want to quickly get back into it," like you just mentioned.
yeah.
And like he said, you don't lose it. You could do nothing for 8 to 12 days, and you lose no fitness whatsoever. So use that time. That 2 weeks after an event is critical for not only recovering physically, but also mentally. I know what it feels like to have those post-race blues, especially when you don't get what you wanted. So you're compounding that effect of whether you've had a DNF or haven't had the race that you wanted to, you're compounding extra stress on your body. So it's that added pressure. So you don't have post-training blues. If you don't hit your session, you just say to
You
yourself,
don't sleep enough. Or
yeah. But you'll turn around and say, you know what, I'll just go out and crash my session tomorrow or the day after. But it's very hard. The mental stress after an event, it's a very important one to focus on. I often, after backyard ultras, because I choose events that are very mentally demanding, and you need to make sure that you spend time relaxing, whether it be just getting away from running for 2 weeks. Say to yourself, I'm not going to run for 2 weeks, but actually plan it. Because if you're a super accountable person, planning some, like even a marathon, if you've just done a marathon, say to yourself, after the marathon, I'm not running for 3 weeks, and then I'm just going to get back into it. And once you put that out there, you'll actually follow through with that and say to you, and so you're a week after the event and you say to yourself, no, I said to myself 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I promised myself I'm not going to do it. So then let your mind recover, because these events, there's such a drain, not only physically, but mentally. And it's important to do those
it
things.
is interesting that because we're talking about how much physically sleep impacts you in a positive way, but it helps with the mental sharpness, like crucially.
Yeah.
Why do you think that when you're so tired, it's like, oh, I need to sleep, and then you wake up and you're not? It's because it's sharpening your mind and everything.
that's
It's
right.
giving your mind a rest. Your mind needs a rest.
And you've been focusing on this big thing for so long. I remember post Sat Champs, the 2 or 3 months leading into it, as everything was focused in on dialing in the mental for this. And then we do this big event and there's all this excitement and all this thing. And then after it, you're like, oh, it's over. Plan yourself some rest, relax, do some meditation, have a little project to go on with at home so that you can kind of get your mind off things, focus on nutrition, things like that. But I guess with Gaby Villa's insight in regards to post-big event nutrition, and she spoke about first hour, things like chalky milk, fruit yogurt, things like that, a sandwich. Within 6 hours, then start stacking, bigger things like pastas, fried rices, salad rolls. Again, rehydrating 1.5 liters for every kilo lost.
Body weight loss.
Yeah. So it's important to do those things. 48 hours later, she spoke about then working on like balanced meals, anti-inflammatory foods like salmon, leafy greens, berries. And then she also spoke about a week later, you may feel like you've recovered already, but your body, even a week or two later, is still recovering. So you still need to focus on eating more. Your appetite might still be up there and you're saying to yourself, oh, I don't need to eat as much because I'm not training anymore. your body is still recovering. All those micro tears and everything else that it's trying to recover from needs, good wholesome foods to recover, and like a balanced diet. So you've got plenty of different minerals and nutrients going in. So if we can get your attention just for 20 seconds, we'd really appreciate if you liked, subscribed, and gave us a 5-star rating if you can on Spotify, because it really helps us, when we reach out to sponsors and to other brands, so we can get prizes for our listeners on the podcast and just really spread the word of, what we're trying to do, become better by next week, essentially.
Another thing that's overlooked as well is you've been slurping down on some gels, you've been slurping down on some carb mixture. The last thing you want after a race is another gel. And I find that I actually get quite sick after my races, especially when I'm trying to get some meals in. An example was right after GV. Worst idea ever. And for some people it might work, but I would not recommend doing it, is going to Macca's straight afterwards. God, I don't mean to diss Shepherd and Macca's, but please,
you're going to.
But please fix your Big Mac burgers. Oh my God! I went in there. I was just dying for something, a burger. And I had my little McChicken first, and that wasn't too bad.
So their McChickens are right, but their Big Macs suck.
Honestly, and then I went to the Big Mac, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, and you know how like you're a little bit dizzy after, or not focused properly after running for that long. And I'm looking at it, and it's like, is this a Big Mac? Like they had a bun, and then a patty, and then a bun, and then the top bun on, and then they had the lettuce, and then and a copious amount of sauce, like to a point where it's just bad. And I took a bite out of it, and I forgot to mention, Dad said before, if you don't eat that, you're paying for it. And I never ate it. I never had to pay for it, but it was like disgusting to say the least. There was so much sauce. And I remember getting to the hotel, and I was sitting in the car, and I had my head down. I'm like, I felt like I was going to vomit. So from that, I think it's so important to eat the foods that you enjoy, eat the meals that you're craving right after an event, whether that be a burger. I usually crave a burger, a kebab.
But also be careful. Like I think that, to give it a little bit of context, this was Macca's. We went through Macca's drive-through at like 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, that's probably
so that was probably a bit.
They might have been up for 36 hours.
Yeah, they might have been up for a while too. But I think also to kind of expand on what was happening to you then as you were trying to recover is that you've spent the last 36 hours eating tiny little meals, and your guts tend to shrink. So that when you go and put a Big Mac meal and a chicken burger in there and your thick shake and all that, your guts, that's why you were starting to not feel well.
Yeah.
So that's why, like Gaby said, first hour, chalky milk, fruit yogurt or something like that, something a little bit smaller but still straight away replenishing you. And then 6 hours later, as your stomach and things start to come back to normal, then you throw a pasta on top or a fried rice or something like that. So you've got to wait.
This all comes back to replenishing your carbs and your protein, like what Gaby said with the chocolate milk. That both combination of those is such great optimal recovery right after a race.
Yeah, and the uptake, your body uptakes all that stuff so quickly.
Yep.
So, but also I think active recovery post events as well is important to keep moving. So I'm not saying that you don't do any exercise 2 weeks after or a week after an event, but I think active, like walking, maybe even getting on a bike so there's no impact, maybe going for a swim, all those things really aid in the recovery process after an event.
So you've mentioned some really key words there with like no impact, right? So what active recovery essentially is you're still recovering, but you're doing exercises, right? And I'd like you to talk about a little bit with the mental side of things, because you can't run, you can't do something that you're really enjoying, and that has a very big toll on you. And how does active recovery aid with that in some ways?
It allows you to continue maintaining your fitness, and by maintaining that fitness mentally, you can kind of
be at ease.
Yeah, you can be at ease because you're saying to yourself, "Well, I'm still doing something." Like I said, you got to set yourself little goals. I think often if you plan things, I'm a big planner of things. So when I look at a race, I will look at that race, and then also look at what recovery is going to look like and the steps that I need to take in order to be running again. So then I know that that's part of the process. Like anything, so I train for an event, I do my peak week, then I'll do my tapering, then I'll do the event, and 99% of that goal is complete. But the 1% that a lot of people don't do is the recovery from that event. That's all part of the event and the training and all that.
Yeah.
So you really need to focus on that recovery process. So then you can start again, whether it be another event or anything like that. So events it's really important to plan that out and keep in mind that the recovery process post-event is part of the whole journey of the event. And if you put a few things in place, so saying to yourself, well, okay, I'm going to take 2 days off, then I'm going to go for my first walk. Then I'm going to make sure I focus on those nutritional things that Gabby mentioned. Then I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to do that. I'm going to go swimming. I'm going to see how I feel. Hang on, I might do some sauna. I might do some ice baths. All those things are going to aid in my recovery, and you'll feel better because you actually feel like you've got a goal. Because the goal is not the event itself, but to train,
To execute.
Execute the whole plan. So to train, to do the event, and to recover. And once you're recovered, that is when your goal has been achieved. Often people think that the goal is the event itself. Sometimes it isn't.
Going all in. I want to go back to active recovery a little bit, where what's happened in your event, whether that be a 10K, 5K, 42K, ultra marathon, you're building up a lot of lactate, and lactate is a byproduct, and that's what makes your legs feel heavy, feel sore in any activity. And what active recovery does is you almost get to a point where it's super easy, but hard enough where your blood flow is flowing throughout your body, gets to the liver, and that converts it over to energy or carbon dioxide, which we breathe out. And that's how we start to clear the body of all these byproducts. So that's essentially what active recovery is. It's just clearing all those byproducts out of your system so that you're ready, well recovered, and can go on to the next training block.
Yeah. Well, what's one big thing that you always mention when it comes to ease of recovery post event? If you've been doing strength training, all right, how much does that strength training before your event aid in your recovery post event?
Well, strength training is a little bit of a preventative maintenance thing that you can do, where if someone who hasn't done strength training and is trying to recover is less likely to recover faster than someone who is doing strength training right before their event. Because
right before or in the lead up?
In the lead up in their training block, who incorporates it in their training, because they're just building such a stronger body. And you know what? A stronger body is going to recover faster and recover stronger.
Yeah, I think that's important. So it's that preventative maintenance things, the things that you can do to help you recover faster.
Again, it's not the run, or it's not after the run. It's the things you do during the run and the things you can do before the run.
Yeah, just like, with training, making sure that you hydrate, that you also fuel and all those things. Well, for post-event recovery, things like, obviously there are more long-term things, but strength training and things like that, planning, and that'll help your mental, and even just planning out your food, having a little food diary and planning out what your food is going to look like post-race, so that you're not stressed and you're not grabbing snacks. You're not going to Macca's and eating absolute crap. Because I often do that. I'll go and do an event, and maybe not so much for like the big events, but it might be a smaller event, and it might be 20Ks or it might be even 10Ks. Just like my post training recovery, where I'll have my protein shake and a banana. But after a big event, which might be like 20 or 40Ks or whatever it may be, I'll have all that already prepared. So I'll go to the car and there it is. It's a salad roll. It's a yogurt. It's those things that Gabby mentioned, so that you're not snacking on. It's not terrible to snack on things.
You need the energy.
You can still have the beers and nachos, but essentially, it's how quick you want to recover. So you keep the food.
It's having
good.
a balanced diet.
Yeah, you keep the food good, and then All right, so let's move to recovery from injury. Unless you had anything else to
No,
add.
I was going to say the same thing. I think that's a good.
So let's move to in recovery from injury. That's a really, really big one. And the focus around diet is huge. The focus around doing cross training
I had that in my notes, yeah.
is almost even bigger, because once that injury has hit, you want to recover as fast as possible. And we had Mia and Tom on the podcast the other week, and Mia was recovering from a stress fracture, and what she spoke about was that when you get an injury, it's something's out of balance. Like I spoke about my plantar stuff, whether I was overtraining. Overtraining's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Overuse injuries are huge for runners. And people often look at what's happened in there and they're thinking, oh, I've injured myself. And unlike other sports like football or any contact sport or any of those things, often injuries for those athletes are like that. They have
direct injuries.
Well, you see it straight away. But with running, it's always the overuse injuries, the runner's knee, the ITB, and all those things.
The chronic injuries.
Yeah, the chronic. And the lucky thing, these injuries that happen in the moment for other athletes, they're almost completely unavoidable. But a lot of our injuries, they're avoidable. We can see it coming a mile away, but we just refuse to see it. We look at our Strava graph and go, I want that perfect line. And so we'll run through pains and all those things when we should be not neglecting our these signs, and we should be saying, all right, is this an adaptation or is this an injury coming on? So for me, like with the plantar stuff, I could feel it. I was waking up in the morning, I couldn't walk, and I'm like, oh, this will be okay. And then I'd warm up and I'm like, this is okay. And I should have taken a couple steps backwards and said, okay, I can still probably train, but maybe I jump on the bike. Maybe I jump in the pool. And I did those things when I was injured instead of doing a bit. Yeah, it was too late. So they're the preventative things to look out for so that you don't get injured.
Firstly, I want to mention, if you actually have a look at Mia's Strava, that's a very good way to start working with rehabilitation and cross training, because she's doing everything in her power to get back to running, and the amazing runner she is, she should be, because she has a lot of potential. But it's funny how she mentioned how there's something out of balance, right? So there's a weak link in your body. So for her, it might have been these shin splints, right? Oh, sorry, it's not shin splints, like a stress fracture in her shins, or it might be shin splints, right? And what's happening there, that's the weak link in your body, right? So what can you do for that? Do a little bit more strength training before, right? But you can also incorporate it within rehabilitation, just not at a higher load, where you can start doing more exercises around your calves, because often what happens is when there's something that's out of balance, there's something in the body where it's taking too much load, right? The body needs to be working all together. The muscles take the impact for the joints, and the joints help the muscles move and be more mobile, right? So everything works together, right? But now there's a weak link. And that weak link is probably due to other muscles are not working hard enough, or not working as properly, not activated. So what can happen there is practicing activation exercises. So for me and a lot of people like you as well, is that the glutes, I find that before a run, running uphill, they're just not activated. So doing glute bridges right before a run can really help that and reduce injury from your hamstrings, pulling a calf muscle, and yes, and going back to strength training. By strength training, you're strengthening all these muscles around these vulnerable points in your body, and that helps by not getting an injury.
Yeah, that's right. But and then I suppose going on, once you do get that injury, then how does that look? Like, what are good ways to cross train, especially for runners? What are good cross training exercises and activities to aid in that recovery?
So, again, the cross training is basically active recovery. So what you're doing is you don't want to put impact on this sore spot, this injury. You want to have less impact, but still working the muscles around it, because you don't want to lose fitness. And I know, who was he again? The doctor.
Dr. Jack Daniels.
Dr. Jack Daniels, he talks about how you don't lose fitness. But over time, if you don't do any fitness for 30 days, you're probably likely to lose a lot of fitness.
And I think that when you're doing cross training, it's as long as it's not hurting. So, for instance, if you've got an ITB issue and you jump on the bike and you say to yourself, "Oh, I'm going to jump on the bike now, and my ITB is going to get better," or whatever it may be. And what you find is that it's still sore whilst you're doing the activity. Don't do that activity. That's not active recovery, and that's not cross training to help that injury. Because what you have to do is you need to find ways to isolate those muscles around the injury to make it obviously stronger for the future and to aid in that recovery process.
So I've actually heard other methods of cross training and the elliptical. That's really no impact if it doesn't hurt. Like you said, don't do something that hurts because, and especially in that injury spot, you don't want to cause more damage. The damage is already done. You got to do stuff around it to help it. And another thing I actually found a really interesting statistic on this. So it's pool running, right? The most weird thing ever. You've filmed me on this, and it's funny. You feel super weird, but you know what it actually does? There's studies that say it preserves your VO2 max. Yeah, like significantly. It's interesting as well because it's the closest thing that you can do to running that's not running, and you still, again, it comes back to the mental. You're still keeping that mind at ease. It's like I'm still working, and it's absolutely no impact.
Yeah, zero impact.
Only thing that is bad is it's cold sometimes.
It's cold, yeah.
But in saying that, the cold also helps with getting more blood flow to the muscles.
Yep. So in terms of nutrition, again, Gaby gave us some really good insights when it comes to recovery from injury. It's important to keep eating. People often find that they think that they're going to either put on weight or things like that. It's important to keep eating through the recovery process. Trust your appetite. Don't decrease your food. She spoke about increasing protein to maintain the muscle mass that you do have. And that's really important to 15 to 25 grams of protein a day, or 4 to 6 times a day. Food variety as well, because that injury needs different types of minerals and vitamins and things like that. So fruit, veg, spices, it's because they contain many chemical compounds that help reduce inflammation to help the healing. Also vitamin C to help support collagen rebuild, because the main structural protein in tendons and ligaments is collagen. And that's one thing I should have mentioned as well post-race. I remember, and I had an injury. I remember having a race, which was Dead Cow Gully, and I had a lot of ligament damage and things like that. And post-race, Gaby was like, collagen. Get on collagen straight away to help aid that recovery process, not only from the actual event itself, but to aid in that injury that I thought I had, but it was just obviously a lot of stress on the body that I needed to flush out.
Another thing I wanted to mention is we talk about injury, but also illness.
Yeah,
that can really be bad for you if you're especially when you're in a big training block, because you're so run down. A lot of people, and I feel like I've said this before, a lot of people look at athletes and go, wow, they're so strong, they're so fit, but they're also so run down from these energy depletion from these huge runs. And what are some of the things that we do every single night, even though it sucks, we might not want to do it? What's one thing that we do? We open the little cabinet. What are we doing?
We take some supplements to make sure that we're kind of replenishing what we've kind of taken from our body.
So these supplements also help us aid with preventing with illness and injury. I'm
happy to. I can remember it because we do it every bloody day.
It's a routine.
Yeah. So we do vitamin C with garlic and horseradish. We take some fish oil. We take magnesium as well. And those things are really important for us. We're not doctors. We're not telling you to go out and take supplements and that you need. But we find that those things really kind of help backfill the hole that we leave behind ourselves from our training, from our recovery, and all those things. And a lot of it, for me, it's more based around like boosting my immunity, because like you said, we deplete our bodies so much that we expose ourselves to getting sick and all those things. Like, I look back at my most recent training block and there's a couple big dips in there, and those 2 times I was sick. And again, it's a balance because you don't want to lose fitness, but then you got to try and recover as well. And because you like, how often do you get worse when you go for a run when you're sick? So you need that rest. It's trying to find that balance. So trying to not get sick whilst you're training is really important.
So we also combine those supplements with a protein shake right before bed. That obviously helps with micro damages in the muscles. But I actually find something, because I've taken these supplements throughout my whole running career, I've never experienced what it's like to not take them. So I was hoping to get an insight from you. Have you found a significant impact on these supplements that you've been taking? Because for me, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just take them and I don't really feel it.
Yeah. So with supplements, so I got to this point by doing trial and error. So I've spent the last 15 years, I've tried all different things. I've tried pea protein. I've tried WPI protein. I've all different kinds of proteins, and taking protein, not taking protein, and seeing. And what I found with taking protein, obviously, I can't have a chicken breast 6 times a day because my pellet couldn't handle something like that. And I find that the protein that we take in a protein powder it gives you the ability to get the amount of protein that you need to recover from your sessions. So that's why I take protein in a powdered form in my shaker. So, and when I wasn't taking it, I was finding that I couldn't back up day after day after day. So I would go off it for a little bit, and then I'd go back on, and just to see the effects. That's why I take it every day. And over 15 years, I found that that's a really good one to have there. Magnesium, I heard that it was going to be good for my sleep. It was going to be good for my muscles and things like that. So once again, I trial and error. I didn't take it, then I took it, then I didn't take it. And then what I found was that my sleep, it did go down. My muscle recovery wasn't as good. So what I did, I eliminated these things day by day, week by week, and one by one. I didn't eliminate 2 things because then I wouldn't know which one was working and which one wasn't. So on top of all that, there was a heap of other stuff I've tried. And some things I wasn't sure whether it was working. So, I mean, all this stuff costs money. So you can't, there's only so much that you can do to aid that recovery. So for me, it was the things that I felt like I could see a change within a day, 2, or a week. So anything that was beyond that, I kind of just didn't use as much. Like, remember, I'd take that turmeric powder, and
that's awful.
That was awful. That was awful.
Oh my God.
But I took that for a couple months, and I didn't find a significant change. But I suppose it's also when you're trying it. I tried that when I had an injury to help reduce inflammation, and I didn't feel like it done enough for me to, really take that on board. So that's why that was the theory behind those supplements. And they're not supplements that are like woo-woo or really niche or, oh my God, it's a performance enhancer or anything like that. They're things that often, the things that we're having, like fish oil as well, to help with joints, and collagen occasionally as well, post-race, straight after. They're things that if I could get it in a particular food, I would eat that food. And you can, but I mean, I can't eat, like I said, 5 or 6 chicken breasts in a day. So I'll have some protein powder or magnesium in different forms in different foods. So if I could get a heap of it from whatever it is, then a natural source, then I would eat it. But then there's so much of it that you would have to consume to have the amount. So in a pill form, it's a little bit easier. So that's the theory behind why I take the supplements that I do. And essentially, I guided you through that same path.
Well, we've also actually trialed creatine.
Yeah.
Which is another thing where I found for me when I was taking it, it was okay. And creatine, another thing, is something that is a build-up of impacts and positive impacts. And I've heard a lot of studies say that it's great for athletes. But for us, and I'm assuming for you, I found that it made my legs feel really heavier because it actually
So
your muscles,
content.
your muscles start to hold more water, and that probably led to heaviness in my legs, and I just thought it's just not worth it. I'm feeling fine without it. Like,
Yeah, I
might not
did
need
feel
it as
heavy
much.
as well with creatine, but the studies are are
Major.
really positive for creatine. But for me, it just didn't work. So
Yeah.
it's not something that I found from day to day or week to week would work, because I found when I come off it, I probably wasn't. Maybe I wasn't as hydrated. So I kind of dropped a little bit of weight because I wasn't holding as much water, but I just felt a little bit more agile and more zippy around on the trails.
Well, what we're trying to emphasize here as well is that it's different for everyone.
Yes.
Like one supplement that might work for us might not work for you.
Yeah.
So we're just suggesting stuff and what works for us.
Yeah,
and
what works for us. And some of these things might work as a placebo, and we'll just take that on
I know,
board.
we'll take it and it's fine.
I wanted to finish up with recovery stuff. So what I wanted to ask you, what are the 3 biggest things that you feel aid your recovery the most, that you can, whether it be from a training run, from an event, from an injury, whether it be mental, physical, or anything like that? What are the 3 big things that you would suggest for our listeners to utilize when it comes to recovery?
I love my Vibit, right? I absolutely love it.
What's a Vibit?
So a Vibit is like a little small foam roller is the best way I can describe it.
It's like a vibrating massage.
The vibrating massager thing. And I use it for my feet because I think it's so crucial to look after your feet. And it just feels really, really like soothing. And I feel like with this, I can get into specific little spots that I feel like bigger bits of equipment can't. And with that, I just feel like my feet are super fresh when I want to hit my next session.
Yep.
Next one, for the mental, I would say meditation. So, although it doesn't directly impact recovery, it aids in other things that directly impact recovery. So meditation before bed.
Does it reduce stress though?
Yeah, I guess it does.
Then it does directly.
directly.
And what is the goal of recovery? To reduce stress on the body.
Yeah, so meditation for me, I'm always trying to clear my head right before bed, which will then in return help me have a better night's sleep and get more hours in that deep sleep. Another last thing, I don't think I can go buy the compression pants. Like, they're expensive, but I'm glad that you've bought them and they're amazing. Like they're
Normatic compression pants, yeah?
Normatic compression pants.
You can actually get them at some clinics and stuff like that you can go to.
Yeah,
I ended up buying them because I was having a heap of issues. I heard awesome studies about them. So.
Yeah, well, a lot of NBA players use them as well. But the best thing about it is that it has the same impacts as an ice bath or a cold shower, but you don't have to do a cold shower. So that's a really cool thing. And it gets the blood flow going to all those lower muscles. I actually feel a little vein in the back of my knee pulsing every time when it goes up in the stages. And it's a great feeling. It's great to sit there, read a book, watch a show, and it's relaxing.
Yeah, very easy way to do it. Yeah.
Hopefully I haven't taken all yours like there.
No. I've got 3 of my own. So but yes, I do like those Normatic pants. They're fantastic when I actually get a spare half an hour of just sitting around, which is never. But my big one is my massage gun. I know we mentioned it on the Percenters podcast, and it was only like a 2 or 3%er. But for me, it is huge, especially big training blocks. What I find is that I'll tighten up and you'll get little knots, maybe for me in my hammies, like I'll get like a little knot or something like that. And I can just feel it when I'm running and anything like that. And then I'll smash that knot with that massage gun and it hurts. I'm almost wincing and crying and I'm just right in there. And I'll smash it for one night and the next day I'll come out and that knot is completely gone. And there is, unless I ask someone like your mum to give me a massage on my hammy or I go to and see my soft tissue therapist, there is no other way that I can get knots out as well as with my Theragun. And it's amazing, like whether it be your hammies or your glutes or my hips. But I always, the one that I find the most is if you have tight hammies, just smash it with that Theragun and it's amazing. My second big thing is we mentioned supplements. Like I can't go past the supplements that we do take. I think it really helps, especially from an immunity perspective. I think no one of those supplements I don't want to mention. I think having supplements backfilling that hole that you leave behind you from from training, from events, and all those things. I think you do need to supplement. I don't think that you can get it from a balanced diet if you're not doing too much. I think that when you're starting to push, if you're an athlete that or a runner that does beyond 60, 70 Ks a week, you probably need to look into those things. Even getting a blood test to see what you're lacking. Recently, I found that 4 runners that I know, all really high level elite runners, all low in iron. So things like those supplements, you're sweating it all out. If you're not putting it back in, then you're going to start to really struggle.
Well, especially for those who are vegan, vegetarian, who are not getting those iron in, because the iron comes from a lot of red meats.
Yeah, you can get iron from different sources anyway.
Supplements,
yeah, you can get supplements, but there's also other foods. But there's only so many leafy greens that you can eat to get that iron. So that is hard. But I guess the biggest one, and I guess it's a mental one for me, is to focus on what you can control. It may seem a little silly to mention that in terms of recovery, but there's a lot of things that you can't control, and worrying about all those things adds so much stress to your day. I'm not the best at it. I try and get better and better, as I do things. But in big training blocks, in big training weeks, all those things that you try to control that you can't, right? Just focus on the things that you can control. Have a bit of a plan in place. Have some structure. So having a plan and letting go of the things that you can't control. Well, letting go of the things that you can't control will reduce stress, and that's an amazing thing. But having a plan as well of the things that you can control will help and aid a lot of these things. So planning your strength training around your weaknesses. Planning what you're going to do post-race, planning pre-planning what you're going to do after a run, making sure that you have all your protein shake and a bit of food. Often what I find people do, they'll do this big run and I will be standing around chatting and I'm the only one there with a protein shake and a banana, and I'm thinking you should be replenishing. So pre-plan things. Right, because that's one thing that you definitely can control, and it will aid in your recovery. So, I guess we'll bring this one across the finish line.
Yeah, hopefully you guys took a couple of tips and tricks from there.
There's so much. There's so many things that we could have, covered more. But I mean, there's only
so much we can.
There's only so much we can do in an hour, I suppose. But there's so many things hopefully you could take away from it, and just implementing those small things, planning, bit of strength training, hydration, all the little nutritional tips that we gave you from Gaby Villa. Try and implement them, and then see how your recovery goes. And let us know like things that you might be doing that we haven't mentioned.
We want to know,
because we want to know as well.
We're chasing the edge, and if you feel like there's something that greatly improves recovery, we're all ears.
Yeah, that's right. So let's bring this one across the finish line and get into our Better by Next Week challenges.
Okay.
So do you want to go first this time?
Yes, I've been really excited for this one because I've been doing it all week, right? That all week is definitely describes what this is. So my Better by Next Week challenge for you this week is that when things get hard, right in the middle of a repeat, up a hill, a really hard, fast repeat, I just want you to come up with a mantra. For me, it's come on. Like I just really yell it at myself, and it gives me that pump up, even just before you're about to finish it, just to pump you up and get through that repeat. It's great, especially when you're listening to music. I find like I never ever will fail on that repeat or fall short on that repeat when I'm talking to myself. Come on, but you use it when you really need to use it because it's a valuable come on.
Okay, so almost put a heap of emphasis on that one moment.
Well, I want you to really emphasize the come on, like not
okay.
Come on, like
Okay. So it's like when you used to play Mario Kart, it's like getting a little star. You only get one, right? And then you just like get like a superpower, like a boost almost in that moment.
Or you could even go like "Vamos" or something like that.
All right. Yeah, well, that's probably what. Oh, yeah. Well,
tennis players are always he's like, "Come on,"
to pump yourself up.
Vamos.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I look forward to it.
Yeah.
I look forward to it because I got a couple little sharpening sessions this week during my week, so I'll definitely do that. Okay, so my Better by Next Week challenge for you this week is to obviously focus on recovery. This has been a recovery episode. I thought the challenge is going to be based around recovery. But like you mentioned, the other day you kind of stuffed up and you had a little bit, you didn't have any water when you were running and all those kinds of things. So my Better by Next Week challenge is focused recovery versus unconscious recovery. So I want you to focus on everything you can do for your next session. So I just want you to kind of schedule 24 hours of doing everything perfect. Everything that you can do to recover for your next session. And that's hydrate properly, make sure you eat properly, make sure you stretch, make sure you have enough sleep, and really dial that in for your next training session. All right. And then kind of note down how you feel during that next training session. And then what I want you to do is have a little bit of unconscious recovery, which is what you normally do anyway. All right, you're kind of unconscious. You don't really focus on it too much. But I want you to do a training session after you've kind of unconsciously used recovery techniques that are unconscious, which is maybe just having a protein shake or maybe doing this or maybe doing that, and seeing the difference. Because I really want to see whether you notice a big difference between that kind of what you normally do and what you do when you really dial it in and really focus on it. Because I've mentioned in the past, when I've got big training weeks, it has to be a full focused recovery so that I can get out the next day. And the unconscious stuff doesn't work because you tend to break down. So I want you to try it, and even the listeners, really focus on your next training session within that 24-hour block to make sure that, yes, everything's dialed in. I've stretched, I've done this, I'm hydrated, and then you hit that training session, and then pay attention to how you feel that during that training session, and then kind of try not to catch yourself focusing on the next one and see how that feels.
Well, that's such a interesting because I'm actually trying to integrate more of this direct focusing. I really just want to be the best that I possibly can. And with that becomes like recovering properly. But I actually wonder if these conscious efforts will turn into soon unconscious efforts in a way. I hope that can happen where it's just like, I just do it because I know I have to do it.
Well, the tricky part about the challenge is that the first time you're doing it focused and conscious, and then it's going to be hard to do it unconsciously after that. So that's what I'm trying to achieve. But yeah, see how everyone goes, see how you go. So I guess we'll finish up. But if anyone that's watching or listening hasn't followed or subscribed or anything like that, we'd really appreciate it if you could follow, like, and subscribe. It's a huge benefit for us because we're looking at getting sponsors on board. We're looking at getting prizes and things like that for the podcast.
I've even noticed with 5-star ratings as well, that really helps it spread out across, and it helps us get an authentication around our podcast, and so more people can listen. So we hope everyone gets better by next week, and we'll see you later.
Enjoy your runs this week, and we'll see you next week.